The word swordsman had a double edged meaning now. All over the country, people didn't know or care about the difference between statutory rape and rape. There prevailed in people's minds somehow the thought that I had forced these girls, made them surrender to my wicked way by getting them to do something they didn't want to do. Headlines never said or explained the statutory aspect of the charge. Only they used that anciently harsh word which men and women all over the world despise: rape. The war against Nazism went on to pages 2 and 3. In my case, covered 5 and 6 and 7 columns of the front page in papers all over the land. In New York, I have always been sensitive to the mood of the people there, the life of the press, and the cultural world located there. In that city, the tabloid papers shot their circulation skyward. People came out, I was told, in queues each evening at 8 o'clock to get the papers, to read the latest testimony. The war effort seemed dragging to many. Government was embarrassed by the incessant calls for the opening of a second front. Everyone seemed to welcome something light and racy to keep their minds off the recent exposures of the horrors of the concentration camps, to make them forget the terrible progress the Nazis appeared to be making all over Europe. Our troops weren't doing too well in the South Pacific. In this international crisis of morale, in the Democratic camp, the little, forgotten isle of Tasmania came through. I got to know the courtroom bailiff, Jack, very well as the trial dragged on. One day, while I was waiting outside the court, one of the tallest men I ever saw, long and slender like a telegraph pole, passed by, dressed in the uniform of the Salvation Army. He was being propelled by a guard. As he went by, I did a double take. A midget woman followed him. He was so high, she so minute. I said to Jack, "What's going on here?" "Section 228A." "I'm up on Section 228, I said, with a cozy sense of familiarity. "Yes, I know," said Jack, "but this is Section 288A of the California Penal Code." "What's that?" "Any man that places his lips to the private parts of one of the opposite sex is hereby liable to 10 years. He went into details, told me something of the case of the state of California versus Harrison, something like yours, he added. "What do you mean?" "Look up the Harrison case, Errol. What happened between these two? The little girl's a midget, and he is a Salvation Army guy, and they caught him. That's all I know." "Who was doing what to whom?" "Oh, I don't know." "It's your turn now, Errol. Go on in." I looked it up, too. It appeared that there was another old Spanish law in the California Penal Code which has never been changed. 25 years earlier, a man named Harrison was out to get rid of dirty politics in Los Angeles County, and his political opposition decided to frame him. They dug up this old law when they supposedly got something on him. They burst open a window and took a picture of Harrison in bed with his wife, making love to her in what the law said was an abnormal way. The case went to trial, a judge was bribed, Harrison was ruined, even though the alleged offense was with his willing wife. It seems to me that that was their God-given business. I reached the conclusion, a position I hold to this day in the space age, that the trouble is the California Penal Code hasn't come into the Union yet. Out in that state, King Philip or somebody is still telling them what to do. Jerry Geisler dressed immaculately, but in a plain way. Here was a man with force, but with no overbearing personality. His power lay in his latent strength. He kept his forces in reserve for his work in court. To me, he always seemed a bit distraught, which may have meant only that he was concentrating on the job. He wore a faraway look, and usually he went about with a nice smile. He wore dignity as some wear fine clothes, and he had a high-pitched, offbeat voice with charm and command to it. You couldn't easily define his mentality, except, of course, as the legal community knows, he almost never loses. Almost. He advised me beforehand, Bear in mind that the district attorney's office will say, "This man is an actor," and they will expect the jury to discount your testimony because you are trained as a performer. To this, Geisler had his own answer. If and when this arose, he intended saying, and he did, "Hasn't this man the right to his day in court as any of us?" The trial opened inside the court. All seats were taken. Outside, there was a jam of humanity. On one side of the room sat the press, by and large friendly to me, so friendly that I couldn't fully understand it. Geisler had advised me to cooperate with the press, and he talked to the newspapers freely. My legal help was limited to two men, Geisler and Ford. The prosecution had a battery of 8 attorneys headed by a prosecutor named Cochran. Some not surprising instinct guided Geisler into selecting a nearly all-female jury, 9 out of 12 of the good men and true. Prosecutor Cochran put Peggy Lane Satterlease on the stand. She was a beautiful girl. Her upholstery was sensational. Her waist was a lovely molding. She had long, dark, silky hair and could have passed for anywhere between 20 and 25. Yet, when she came in, I hardly recognized her. They had put her in bobby socks, flat-heeled shoes, and pigtails. She could have looked like my kid sister. My heart sank when I beheld her. My God, I thought, she looks like a baby. Yet a week or two earlier, she had been in a chorus dressed scantily, to say the least. While Peggy gave her testimony, I sat at my desk, listening hard and concentrating on a pad of paper onto which I wrote notes. Occasionally, I looked at her or Cochran, a furtive glance, and I seemed to need the actual physical warmth of Geisler on my right and the young Irish lawyer on my left. Cochran asked her to tell how, nearly 2 years before, she had yielded to me on board the Sirocco. We were cruising to Catalina, a weekend jaunt, she said, and I had kissed her at the companionway of the yacht. Then, she said, she had gone into her stateroom, and I followed her. Then came the juicy dialogue that the newspaper boys and the public were waiting for. The White House must have been a little grateful to have the war news taken off page 1 and some of the fire deflected elsewhere. Question: Who kissed you? Answer: Why, Mr. Flynn. Question: What did you do? I went to the stateroom and I went to bed. What happened then? In about 10 minutes, there was a knock at the door. At the same time, Flynn walked in, clad in pajamas. He asked if he could talk to me. I said it was not very nice for a gentleman to be in a lady's bedroom, especially if she was in bed. What did he say? If you let me get in bed with you, I won't bother you. I just want to talk with you. Then she testified I was intimate with her. At just about that time, when Peggy said it wasn't very gentlemanly of me to call at her bedroom, Warner's released Gentleman Jim. A riot of merriment went around. A lot of merriment went all through the country and elsewhere, because I had a certain very opposite line of dialogue at the close of that picture. Alexis Smith, the girl, is almost in my arms, and I say to her, "How could I marry you?" "You're a lady." She says, "I am no lady." Gentleman Jim slaps her, grabs her in his arms, kisses her, and says, "I am no gentleman." The wartime public was thrown into mild hysterics over this. In some parts of the country, they even had to throw out this last line so as to prevent anything too raucous happening in the theaters. Peggy also testified that on returning to port, we were standing at the rail, and she remarked how beautiful the moon was. He said it would look much more beautiful through a porthole. Apparently, she testified, we actually looked at the moon through the porthole. We went below, she said. I took a yachting outfit off her, and we had another session. How did you feel about this? I was just plain mad this time, instead of scared as before. I don't have to defend myself as I recount the trial. My lawyers did that, and the jury arrived at its decision. Nonetheless, the trial was an American drama, and Jerry Giesler produced much of it as he handled the young ladies and the legal opposition. When he cross-examined Peggy, employing a soft voice and not at all the harsh accuser, he said, "Mrs. Satterley, I'm a little bit mystified. I have here a picture. Is this you?" He showed her the picture. "Yes." He made a clucking sound with his tongue 2 or 3 times, as if expressing surprise. He didn't show the picture to anybody in the court except her, but he said, "What a difference! Tell me, do you always dress like this?" "Like what? In bobby socks and pigtails?" "Sometimes, if I feel like it. That's all." Yet the effect on the jury must have been fantastic. They could have only wondered, what has he got there? A picture she admitted was herself. Peggy was smart, very smart. She stuck to her story. She described in minute detail how I lured her into the after cabin and, as she said, pushed her onto the bunk. In other words, she did not admit consent. She was implying a knock her down, drag her out rape. I pushed her up onto the bunk, she said, where I forcefully took her. Meanwhile, I said to her, "Darling, look out of the porthole. You see that glorious moon?" That remark followed me around for years. "Oh, Errol, look at the porthole and the glorious moon." I rather suppose that the expression has become the dividing line of my life. Everything that went on before the porthole and the glorious moon, and everything that has gone on since. Giesler began his attack. He brought out a picture of the Socorro's interior, and he drew a counterpart of it on the blackboard. He asked Peggy how high the bunk was. She indicated a height not much above the knees. Giesler proved that the bunk was at least 5 feet off the floorboard. He wondered, before the jury, if I had enough strength to get her up there forcibly, or whether or not she had enough strength to resist being put up there, or enough strength to get down. This kind of testimony went on for days. Yet slowly, steadily, the talented Giesler convinced everybody that these 2 young ladies knew what they were doing. They were ambitious to become showgirls. They knew and understood the risks of visiting a famous bachelor's house or yacht in Hollywood. Thereafter, Giesler battered down Peggy's claim of intercourse without consent.